hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's system is just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God. I can't even believe this, Derek. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly. That's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's the.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
Welcome to the first Mile High Affiliates podcast of this wild 2020 year. With all that is going on in the world, we are just happy to be here and talk about fantasy football. I don't know if it's what we do best, but we're going to try it out today here in June, right at the end of June. I'm Eric Lansing, of course, along with the usual suspects of Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond. We're actually doing this podcast on Microsoft Teams. You're just going to get the audio once it's all edited, but we're happy here to even be talking about possible football season. We're still social distancing, I guess, huh, guys?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Yeah. So, no, we're not hanging out at my crib. We're online. It's just the way of the world these days. Everybody's doing work from home. Well, I guess you two aren't. I guess Mikey's still going into work, and Todd, you're going into work too, huh?
Yeah. Just people still need shoes, so I guess
Do they need them that bad?
People are now that other malls have opened now, so that'll slow down for us because we're the only ones open. But yeah, apparently people still need shoes. I think they're teaching themselves how to shop. It's kind of annoying, but whatever. It's what it is.
I guess the money's going to the economy, so I guess that's something. And Mikey's been going into work more than anybody.
Yeah,
that's right. Hours and hours and hours.
How would from when this all first started, how many hours do you think you're working per week, Mikey?
It's hard to say, but more than 60 every week.
For those who don't know, Mikey works at Royal Crest Dairy, and he's one of the big wigs. What is it called? The Elite Team? Infinity Team. The Infinity Team. That's right. They've been busting their butts over there for sure. Me, I haven't been back to work since March 13th. So I've had a lot of time to watch a lot of TV, do a little work, but collecting baseball cards. I've been doing that. That's finished my base set of Topps Series 1 2020, and now I'm thinking about going into Series 2. But, that's what I've been doing. We'll see if we go back to work in the fall and all this COVID stuff. So it's pretty crazy. So definitely cool to hang out with you guys in some respect and talk fantasy football. So what's coming up on the show is all about the moves. Todd, you got moves, don't you?
Oh, lots of them.
None that anybody wants to see, but you got them.
Yeah, I got them.
We'll talk about all the off-season player changes that took place, and there's quite a bit of it, so I'll take up most of this podcast. And speaking of being in a new place, how about some rookie talks? Which rookies do we think can make a splash, or some rookies that you should be considering on draft day? So you guys ready to get into this off-season moves?
Let's do it.
All right. So, of course, quarterback. We love talking about quarterbacks, and there's a few of them that actually moved and made a difference this year. You don't see a lot of that. Usually when teams have a good quarterback, you hold on to them tight. A couple of these ones are older, and one is a little unproven, but has a chance here. So we'll talk the three that we're going to talk about, and you guys can always throw in someone if we don't, if there's someone I'm missing or if you want to talk about. But the main three is going to be Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. That's crazy. Phillip Rivers to Indianapolis, and Teddy Bridgewater to Carolina. So the question is, which I said, which quarterback has or had the best move? Todd, if you like to start out of those guys, and we'll talk about all of them, but is there one that stands out that's a favorite to you?
I mean, probably just the obvious one, Tom Brady. I mean, he's going to a team that has a lot better weapons than he had in New England. I mean, no offense to Julian Edelman, but I mean, he's going for Chris Evans.
That's Captain America.
Godwin. There we go. I know. Godwin and Evans. I mean, if Tom Brady had those weapons in New England, who knows if he probably still be there. So he's definitely going to a better situation where he has some better weapons around him. But obviously, to the fact he is 43. But I think, going to a team that has, like I said, has better weapons, it's going to help him out so he doesn't have to keep, forcing a lot of passes. Because let's face it, last year, how many wide receivers did Tom Brady go through? It was like a wheel. You thought Josh Gordon, was going to work out, but worked out for 1 week, and he got hurt and had some other issues. Even Antonio Brown, and let's face it, when for Antonio Brown, if you can't make it in New England, you're done. You're done. I mean, you have one of the best quarterbacks throwing you the football, and you can't figure stuff out. That's what. So I think Tom Brady, obviously, that's the easy choice just because of the weapons around him, and it's going to make. I mean, obviously Godwin and Evans had put up big numbers anyway with Jameis Winston throwing 10 million interceptions anyway. So I think now you have a quarterback who has 6 rings. I think that's going to help. So Tom Brady was the one that obviously stuck out, but that's the obvious. So
we'll get into the depth as we go along here too, in terms of each player. In case we get away from Tom Brady, we'll come back to him. Mikey, is Tom Brady the best out of the 3? Is that the best move that we've seen amongst these 3 quarterbacks?
Oh, those 3 completely.
Yeah, is there someone I'm missing?
No, but I'm not a fan of the Phillip Rivers to Indianapolis move. I kind of like the Teddy Bridgewater to Carolina move, but Brady is definitely the best one. I mean, this offense has a chance to just put up a boatload of points.
You sound pretty high on it. I didn't ask you guys to do rankings at all, but I mean, you must. Do you think you have them in the top? I would 6 or 7 quarterbacks.
Hard to say, but probably.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, like Todd just kind of went over. Look at all the weapons they have there, and I'm not really buying into the fact that people say that he can't throw deep anymore. Yeah, he's 43, but I haven't really. Look at what he was working with in terms of deep threats last year. Like Philip Dorsett was like his best guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's Philip Dorsett. He sucks.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that. I understand that. On paper, it looks great, and you and I talk a lot, and you obviously you're very high in Bruce Arians and his offensive mind and what he's capable of doing. But this is a guy in the last 3 years that has just struggled down the stretch of seasons. And that could be to his age. That I don't know if it's due to Belichick and him wanting to run the ball and let the defense take over games. He always seems to start strong and then he ends wrong. Like last year in the first 10 games, he averaged about 25 completions per game. He had 14 touchdowns in those 10 games. And in the last 6 games, he only averaged 19 completions. Feel like if he could, I mean, he's got the weapons. He's got an offensive coach that really wants to put points on the board, but does he still even have it? I know he had. Go ahead.
I think he does. I think a lot of that was Belichick, and I think the reason why is as an older quarterback, we kind of saw this happen to Peyton Manning when the weather starts getting colder in November and December. Maybe you lose a little bit on your throws. Maybe it's not as easy to throw, but he's going to Florida. I mean, that's not even going to be a concern. And the division he's playing with, you're talking about 2 other teams in the Falcons and the Saints that are playing in domes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's out of the cold and into the nice, sunshiny state of Florida. I think he's going to be fine.
You mentioned his schedule. He does have to play the Bears, the Broncos, the Chiefs, Chargers. Got a good pass rush when they're healthy. Vikings and Packers. That's a pretty tough schedule too, outside of the division.
Yeah, but a lot of those are early, which is good. So you're not going to get them before it's
But that's when he's at his best, in my opinion. That's when he's at his best, when it's at the beginning of the season. He seems to be so good at the beginning. Let's talk about some other these other 2 guys. Do you guys want to throw any tidbits about Phillip Rivers in Indy or Teddy Bridgewater to Carolina? Maybe let me ask this question, because I'm not high on Teddy Bridgewater, but it seems like a lot of people are, and obviously Carolina is definitely excited to have him as their starting quarterback to take over Cam Newton. What am I missing about this guy? What makes him so good?
I think.
Go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say, I think obviously what he did in New Orleans, everybody's thinking, oh, he can do that same thing, in Carolina. doesn't have Michael Thomas to throw the football to. So let's get that out the way first. And I mean, what, 9 games he started in, and if you compare,
I don't think he started all 9 of those games.
Okay, so
Go ahead,
7 or 8. So I think with Bridgewater I think you're just looking like hoping he can bring some of that to New Orleans. I mean, to Carolina. But it's a different animal when the Saints had obviously a better team than Carolina, around him. So that I think that obviously that helps his case. And that's obviously why why he was able to get a big deal at Carolina. So I just think it's Bridgewater's kind of wait and see kind of thing too. I mean, I wouldn't. Obviously wouldn't make him my starting quarterback by no means. But you kind of maybe as a bye week quarterback, he would he at least showed, hey, I can come in and at least steer the ship, and not stink it. So I think that helps his case. But is Bridgewater a quarterback that I'll be looking that I think about maybe drafting, as a backup? It obviously depends on the round. I mean, obviously, all 3 of us.
Well, let's say you have the entire draft. Let's say you need a backup quarterback in the last round. Would you go Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold?
Oh, that's a good. I think I go Bridgewater. I mean, obviously Darnold still learning as much as he can. Obviously, that Jets team is still a dumpster fire anyway. But yeah, I would probably go Bridgewater in that case. I would feel more comfortable with Bridgewater if for my number 2 quarterback over Darnold. So that's what I'm going with.
Mikey, do you want to say something about Bridgewater, or if you want to say something about Phillip Rivers?
Both. With Bridgewater, I like the fit. So a lot of what Matt Rule and Baylor and the offense is going to bring in, I think, suits what Bridgewater does really well. Like, he's not a big-time down-the-field thrower, but he's more of a check down, 20 yards and in, lots of screens, that type of thing. And so having Christian McCaffrey, who quite possibly is like the best screen running back in the game, is going to benefit him a lot. But they're also going to have a lot of speed on the outside with Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, and now Robbie Anderson coming in there. I just think it's the offense and the pieces they put around him is going to fit him really well.
Phillip Rivers is Indianapolis. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are super high on him. Looks like they have a good running game, obviously, with a couple decent running backs. So is Phillip Rivers a top 15 guy?
No, absolutely not.
Wow, Mikey is throwing him away. He's done. Huh?
Like, you look at Phillip Rivers throughout his career, the one thing that I like is that he's going back to Frank Reich, and he had his best season under him. What I don't like is the people around him.
Rivers, like Mo Alley Cox?
No, Rivers has always been somebody that relied on heavy screen game. The running backs always got a lot of catches. He loves his tight ends. And then the last couple years in San Diego, he's had that security blanket in Keenan Allen. You look at what the Colts have, like wide receiver, who's that guy? It's
not that guy anymore?
It's not T.Y. Hilton.
No.
He's more of a down the field guy. These running backs that they have, Marlon Mack and Naheem Hines, he may be the guy that catches passes out of the backfield. Jonathan Taylor, I don't really think so. I'm sure we'll talk about him later.
Oh, sure.
And their tight ends, they have Jack Doyle, the always reliable.
Wow. Such disdain in your voice when you said Jack Doyle. Goodness.
He's good, but he gets hurt. Okay?
I mean, still one of the best names in football, Jack Doyle. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I just don't think the stuff around him is good enough to where this team's going to be any good.
And they run first, and they have a great offensive line, so he'll be protected. But they like to run first. He's probably not going to rack up a ton of completions. Maybe he ends up being a backup somewhere for someone, but not one a lot of people are going to be super excited about. All right, let's go to the running backs, which is obviously what a lot of people are talking about. All kinds of movement. We're going to talk about 3, unless you guys want to jump in and add some more afterwards. But The three main ones we're going to talk about: Melvin Gordon to the Broncos, Philip Lindsay in trouble. We'll have to wait and see. Todd Gurley to Atlanta, and David Johnson to Houston. We'll start with Mikey this time. Mikey, out of those three guys, unless you have a better one, Gordon to Denver, Gurley to Atlanta, David Johnson to Houston, who had the best move?
I think it's Gurley to Atlanta.
Ooh, all right.
Watching Todd Gurley last year, I think that the Rams were protecting him maybe more than they should have. Like, when it comes down to a knee injury, like, the things that you look for is there a loss of speed? Is he not able to cut like he used to? And I didn't really see that. You would see him run out of bounds more than he used to, and he'd have to get breathers. But they really started to run him more towards the end of the season when they needed him. And that's when you started to see him start coming up and start being the old Todd Gurley again. And I think going to a team like the Falcons that are going to use him in a lot of different ways, they'll use him in the screen game. They're not afraid to run the ball when they get into the red zone. I think he's going to have the best opportunity of those three to be the old Todd Gurley, as opposed to David Johnson, who I don't think is the same guy, and Melvin Gordon, who the Broncos paid a lot of money to, but I think Lindsey's still going to be involved.
So Todd, Mikey kind of mentioned not being afraid to use Todd Gurley. Atlanta threw the ball more than any other team last year. Are you excited to see Todd Gurley get back to his old self? Do you think he will get there, and will he catch a lot of passes for him?
I think so too, because I think that'll help Matt Ryan too, in the sense that the Falcons haven't had that number one back since Matt Ryan has been there. They've kind of had these committee running backs with Freeman and Coleman. You just haven't really had that running back where Matt Ryan feels really comfortable with, hey, I can just hand the ball off and running back can just do his thing, because that's why I think that's why for so many years Matt Ryan just threw, because he just, not that he didn't trust his running back, it just wasn't a running back that that could milk the clock as much or get that last first down to ice the game or whatever, or especially at the goal line, because we've seen enough Falcon games where they're at the goal line, and you're thinking, okay, they're just gonna run the ball. And Matt Ryan either play action pass, or he's rolling out and trying to run it himself, or trying to to throw it in there. That's why he has a lot of interceptions. So I do agree with Mikey, the fact bringing Todd Gurley brings in a a seasoned running back has been to the Super Bowl too, so he knows what it takes to win too. So that helps the situation too, and I think it'll just take pressure off Matt Ryan. So I think Todd Gurley for sure to the Falcons is a great move. And then I know David Johnson thing is interesting because yes, David Johnson hasn't really been the same since his injury. Yes. And obviously he was injured. He was injured last year and the year before a little bit, but I think him going to Houston, might rejuvenate his career a little bit, because I think now if Bill O'Brien believes in him, and he won't hold him back or anything like that. And I think too for Deshaun Watson, knowing he has, again, another top, he's not top 5 running back as he used to be, but top 15, that's better than what they've had in the past before. And like I said, they've been sprinkling in a lot of running backs too. Really the last really, really good running back in Houston that they had was Arian Foster. That that really helped out Schaub when he was in Houston. So I think David Johnson might help Deshaun Watson in that sense, and I kind of do like that move, because I think because now obviously their passing game is definitely, I don't know, obviously took a little bit of a hit because they got no more Hopkins. So I think David Johnson might surprise a lot of people. So
Just going back to Todd Gurley for a second, you mentioned his goal line, 70 touchdowns in his 5-year career. Even last year, Mike, you mentioned they didn't use him as much as maybe they would have in the past because of an injury. He still had 12 rushing touchdowns, 31 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So still very prolific if he can muster up any of that in Atlanta. Mikey, give me your quick thoughts on David Johnson.
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan.
I watch him. He's not the same guy, and I can't put my finger on what it is. Like I almost thought he looked fatter, but
Fatter David Johnson.
but yeah, he doesn't run the same. He doesn't cut the same. He just looks slower to me the past couple seasons. So to me, that tells me that there's something else going on there. And Todd saying that he thinks Bill O'Brien will do. So you can't put any faith in him, Bill O'Brien. He always does the opposite of what you think he's gonna do.
Yeah.
Isn't there something to David Johnson being really? I mean, they still have Duke Johnson there, but Carlos Hyde is gone. He's going to get all the carries, or majority of the carries. He could still catch the ball out of the backfield, and with Hopkins and his 150 targets out of Houston, and he can catch the ball. He's at least volume's got to make him somewhere inside the top. I don't know, 18, 17 running backs. Is that being too generous?
I agree with you there, but you did mention that Duke Johnson is still there. So I have to think part of what always made David Johnson special was the fact that he was having seasons where he was catching 70 to 80 balls.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen with Duke Johnson there.
Mm.
He'll still catch passes, don't get me wrong, but not as much as he once did.
But you don't think as many as like, so maybe like what, 40 or 50 maybe?
Yeah, and I guess I couldn't tell you if that puts him in my top 18 or not. But
yeah, I didn't have you guys do rankings. We'll do that on another show. So it's just one of those kind of, what do you think? Will you kind of get that sense of a guy? I mean, if he catches passes in our type of league, it makes a huge difference. Mikey, we're obviously all Bronco fans on this podcast here, and once we heard the news that Melvin Gordon was going to be joining Philip Lindsay in the backfield, I was excited not as a fantasy owner, but a Denver Bronco going to the playoff owner. But do you think Gordon still has fantasy relevancy?
Well, I mean, you just said it right there. Like, I am a huge fan of the move as a Broncos fan, but not as much as a fantasy fan. As a Bronco fan, he fills a need as to what we've been watching for years and years and years, where the Broncos struggle on 3rd and short.
Third and one. We just can't get it.
Yeah, or like inside the 10-yard line when we can't get it in the end zone.
Yeah.
So I believe Melvin Gordon really, really helps out there. But I do believe that Philip Lindsay's still going to have a somewhat of a significant enough role in this offense, and not to mention the other weapons that we now have, Jerry Jeudy being included. Who knows what they're going to do with KJ Hamler, that I don't think Melvin Gordon is going to get the type of volume that he once did with the Chargers. So I'm a little bit worried there. Like, I don't think he's first-round pick material like he once was.
But couldn't you have two players? I mean, Gordon and Eckler shared a backfield, and they were both be able to produce pretty significant numbers, maybe not first-round numbers, but I feel like Gordon has the ability to pile up big numbers. If our offensive line is what they say it's going to be, I think there's an opportunity for him to be a top 10 running back.
Yeah, the opportunity is there. I just don't know how much I trust that to be the case.
Even if he doesn't get it in yards. I mean, he's averaged 12 touchdowns the last 4 years, and that's with Eckler in the backfield. So even if he only runs for 700, 800 yards, if he gets 10 touchdowns, that's still pretty good. If he gets 40 receptions, depending on how all this pans out, we're not even real sure. One thing I'll say about our new offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, he likes to use workhorse running backs. And I don't know if that's just more of a lack of having the option, but I think if Melvin Gordon's hot and running the ball well, Philip Lindsay could see a little less than maybe we're anticipating. But that's just my initial thoughts looking over that type of.
Yeah, and you have to remember the one thing about Melvin Gordon is you're waiting And who knows when it's going to happen, but it's
Don't
going
say
to
it.
happen.
Don't say it.
Later in the year, it never fails. He's going to get hurt.
But Mikey, come on now. Football hasn't even started yet. Let's not get. Here's what I was thinking too: is who gets 1,000 yards, Lindsey or Gordon?
My odds would be on Gordon.
Okay. Okay. Well, so Lindsey doesn't go for a third time 1,000 yards again. I mean,
Only if Gordon gets hurt.
Okay.
All right. Any other running backs we want to talk about? Matt Breida and Jordan Howard went to Miami. Is that fun?
Mm,
No.
I've never been a big
I
fan
mean,
of Jordan Howard. That doesn't really
That's
help
for
me.
sure. All right. So those are our running backs, best moves. Now we're going to go to our wide receivers and some big names here for sure. DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. His time in Houston is done. I don't know. I mean, they saw that Sports Illustrated article and it's very vague, but said a lot as well in terms of just not being happy there. Brandon Cooks to Houston, and then Stephon Diggs to Buffalo. Todd, who is, I mean, obviously Hopkins is the big name, but has that been the best move in terms of wide receivers?
You know, I kind of like the Stephon Diggs to Buffalo kind of move, just because. What does Josh Allen like to do? Throw the ball deep. What does Stephon like to do? Run deep. So I think that definitely helps his stock a little bit in that sense. You know, obviously going from a dome to outside, but I think that move helps Josh Allen because there's definitely some signs. Josh Allen has definitely shown, he can definitely, he led the Bills to the playoffs. So that's something there. So I think that might help both of them. And obviously Hopkins is the obvious one, just like the Tom Brady situation. Brandon Cooks is an interesting one. I mean,
all right, you're going too quick, Todd. We're talking about one at a time.
Right. Okay.
So Todd says his favorite is Stephon Diggs. What do you think about Stephon Diggs, Miguel?
I like the move. I mean, he's a little bit of a head case, but Todd is right. The way that they're trying to run their offense is to what Josh Allen's strengths are with the big arm and adding him to go along with John Brown. I think it'll be a really good move for him.
Stephon Diggs has never played 16 full games in a season. He played 15 games once in the last 2 years. Obviously, it's knee, hip, groin, chest, just a plethora of injuries. It'll be interesting to see. The Bills like to run first. Josh Allen is a good quarterback, especially when he gets the ball down the field. Bills offense ranked just 23rd, so maybe Stephon Diggs will help that out. Mikey, was Stephon Diggs your favorite move of those three? If not, was it Hopkins or was it Cooks?
No, and I want to add one more thing on Diggs. Let's not
Sure.
forget he's out of that dome now, which hurts him, at least I believe.
Okay.
Into the cold weather of Buffalo, New York. So we'll see how well that works up there.
Sure.
I had a hard time with this one because obviously DeAndre Hopkins, it's hard for me to say it's the best move because he was so good in Houston. And so now you don't know how it's going to work with Kyler Murray as opposed to Deshaun Watson. So I'm going to hate myself for saying this.
Oh, he's going there.
Because I'm going there, even though I've never, ever been a fan of Brandon Cooks.
Oh, wow.
In the offense he's going to in Houston, which I expect to be very pass heavy, I'm really intrigued to see how this works because they have three receivers that are essentially the same. They have Cooks, they have Kenny Stills, and they have the oft-injured Will Fuller, which are pretty much all the same guy, at least to me. Very fast, inconsistent catching the ball, all deep threats. Maybe this time Brandon Cooks has finally found his fit.
I'm going to say this, and I said this on the podcast last year. What's up with Brandon Cooks, the human being? He's in his fourth team in 5 years. Is he some sort of knucklehead? I mean, I haven't read anything, haven't heard anything. I don't know the guy personally. There's got to be a reason he can't stick around. And it hasn't been because he hasn't been productive. He has 1,000+ receiving yards in 4 of his 6 seasons. But man, it just seems strange that a guy who's that productive ends up on 4 different teams.
Well, it's because interesting. He's had Tom Brady throwing the football and Drew Brees. So yeah, I mean your head scratcher is definitely warranted because you think, okay, like Drew Brees and Tom Brady are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So what did Cooks do to make Tom Brady and Drew Brees go, you know what, we don't need you?
I read it the opposite way. I think he doesn't have that dog in him. Like most receivers, you know, I mean, you can call them divas if you want, but most of them have that dog in them where they're after you. You know, they want to get after whoever's guarding them. When I watch Brandon Cooks, I don't see that. He's just he's kind of laid back, and that's not really the receiver mentality. So I kind of think that rubs people the wrong way.
Okay, I see that. You mentioned he's in a good situation. You mentioned all those other receivers on the Texans were similar in the way they play on the field. That's even when they get on the field. Very similar situations. They're all injury prone, even that Kiki QT guy. So good chance for Brandon Cooks to rack up numbers in an offense that likes to throw. Just let's make some quick notes on DeAndre Hopkins. Are we worried that he's not with Deshaun Watson anymore? A lot of people are pretty high on Kyler Murray from what I've read so far. So is he a first-round wide receiver? We'll start with Mikey this time.
I think he is. I mean, he's just so good. I would have a hard time not having him in that first round. Plus, I think Arizona is going to, even though he doesn't have that chemistry yet with Kyler Murray, they're going to be pass heavy. He may not see the type of double teams that he once did, given that they also have Christian Kirk and whatever's left of Larry Fitzgerald. So, yeah, I think he's still a first-round receiver.
Is he, Todd?
I was kind of going back and forth in this one when I was.
I mean, you're kind of at the point of the draft. I mean, you're pretty close to Mikey too, but you're at the point in the draft. If Michael Thomas is off the board, Julio Jones is off the board, is it going to be Hopkins or Tyreek Hill?
You know what? I think I'd go Tyreek Hill.
Oh, he's so loyal. He's so loyal to his guys.
Hey, it's what can I say? Got me 2 championships. So
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you're very loyal.
I know. Well, I mean,
go ahead.
I was gonna say too is I mean that where at least where I'm in the draft, where Mikey's in the draft is if he was there. But again, I'm kind of mentality that I have going the last few seasons is drafting a running back first, no matter what.
All right, well, that's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking for your specific. I'm just saying.
I'd rather do that.
I'd
rather draft a running back than I would Hopkins in the first round. There you go.
All right. In terms of DeAndre Hopkins, we've seen him with bad quarterbacks before and still succeed. He finished as wide receiver 2 in 2017 with Watson, Savage, and Yates. He finished wide receiver 5 in 2015 with Hoyer, Mallett, Yates, and Whedon. So if you're concerned, I would like to say that Kyler Murray is better than all of those guys. So I think most people, at least as of this point, he should be a guy you shouldn't worry too much about. Going to – what's that, Miguel?
I said agreed.
Let's move on to the tight ends because we're about a half hour in. We still want to get to those rookies. In terms of tight ends moving around the league, Austin Hooper to Cleveland. You have Gronk back in the NFL. He's over at Tampa Bay with his best bud. Hayden Hurst to Atlanta. Eric Ebron to Pittsburgh. So some, especially we understand the landscape of tight ends. And I was joking with Mikey just the other day. He's saying I was surprised that Ertz, who was the guy I drafted in the 3rd round really early, thought he had a bad year. He ended up finishing 2nd amongst tight ends. We'll talk more about tight ends and points on the tight end show. But in terms of those guys, Todd, we'll start with you in terms of Hooper to Cleveland, Gronk to Tampa, Hayden Hurst to Atlanta, Eric Ebron to Pittsburgh. Is there one that stands out or that you like more than the others?
The Hurst one's kind of interesting to me because there's no competition in Atlanta now because Hooper's gone. And Matt Ryan made Hooper kind of an unknown wide tight end when he came to the league. He was like a late round draft pick, but that one's kind of an interesting one because Matt Ryan likes throwing to his tight ends too as well. Obviously he's got good weapons obviously around him in Julio and Ridley, but Hurts is an interesting one. I kind of because obviously drafting tight ends later in the draft anyway. You always say just throw one at a dartboard and see which one sticks. unless it's Gronk or or this case Kittle and Kelsey. So Hurts is an interesting one. So I think Hurts is kind of an interesting one. I kind of like that move a little bit. Kind of going to a high-powered offense because when he was in Baltimore, the offense was pretty high scoring. So I think he's going from one. So I like the Hurts one. I like the Hurts move.
Hurst is interesting. He's got the pedigree. He was a first-round pick by the Ravens in 2018, dealt with some foot surgery that limited his rookie year. So had a pretty cool 61-yard catch against Buffalo in a win. Todd, Mikey, are you on the Hayden Hurst train, or is there another tight end that you like?
I like Gronk better.
Gronk, huh? You're on the Gronk train.
Yeah. Hayden Hurst, I kind of like the upside. Austin Hooper, I don't, because I feel like he's trading down from Matt Ryan to Baker Mayfield, and that's not a good move.
He got paid.
Eric Ebron will be good so long as Big Ben can stay healthy. So I got to go with Gronk, man. Again, they have so much there that he's not going to be facing the kind of double teams or matchup issues that he was when he was with New England. Now, the concern I do have, because I'm sure you'll bring it up, is his health and the fact that he's coming off a whole entire season where he hasn't played. So
you know me all too well.
Yeah. Those are very big deals. But if you're asking me to choose, I'm going to take the proven commodity where if Gronk is Gronk, he's a round 2 tight end.
Round 2. You're telling me you would take him in the second round I guess if you see some great spring or whatever you want to call it, preseason games from him?
No, I just said if Gronk is Gronk.
But how will we know when that is? We could all put Gronk number 2 or 3 if we figured, he's going to be Gronk. But, if you had to pick where do you think Gronk is going to be?
I'm just saying, if you take the upside of all of these guys, his is way higher than any of these guys can even sniff.
Would you take, if we were drafting today, would you take Gronk or Mark Andrews?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Just gut. This obviously can change, but I'm putting you on the spot now.
My gut's telling me Gronk.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
All right, last one. Gronk or Darren Waller?
Ooh.
I'd go Waller there.
Okay.
Ooh.
I like Waller.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do, and he'll be one of the top ones that people take a look on. He got a lot of upside and not a lot of options at receiver, but we'll talk about some of their options, or at least one of their options here in the rookie talk here in a second.
And
anything you guys want to go ahead?
I was just going to say my like for Waller could be just as, shout out to G. Both times he played me last year, Darren Waller just smashed me. So you tend to remember things like that.
So I need to draft Waller to make sure I can beat Mikey. Perfect. So those are the tight end moves there. There's obviously more that's gone on, but those are the main ones. Are you guys ready to talk about some rookies?
Yeah.
I know Mike and I will do our best. Todd's more of the college guy than us, but to kind of segue into rookies, you guys ready for some MHA trivia?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
He sounds so ecstatic to do it. And it does involve rookies, so that might be why. So we'll play a game here.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
And we're going to do 3 different rounds. And I'm going to ask you a question for each round. We're going to go back and forth, so don't blurt out the answer. And then we'll kind of go back and forth, and whoever has the most points wins. So I got my pen, got my pad here, and we're going to start with our first round here. And we'll start with Todd. We'll be nice. Actually, you know what? No, that's fine. We're not talking about college guys yet, but it involves rookies. It involves last year's rookies.
Okay.
So the first round, Todd, you get the first one. Who were the top scoring rookie quarterbacks in our scoring format last year? So it is top 3. If you name it, you get a point. Even if you get it right, it'll be Mikey's turn. But so just give me one in the top 3. If you get one of those, you get a point.
Okay.
Top scoring rookie quarterbacks in our scoring format in 2019.
Ooh.
No cheating. I can't see Mikey right now, so he might be just Googling it up, so no cheating.
Yeah, no.
I'm
cheating.
not-
Okay.
I'm trying to see how good my memory is to see if I can even remember any rookie quarterbacks from last year.
There you go. Come on, Todd.
Lamar Jackson.
Oh, that's incorrect. He was a second-year quarterback last year.
No, he was being drafted.
Mikey, you can name any of the top 3 for a point here.
I'm going to say Daniel Jones.
That is correct. Daniel Jones was actually third. He had 536 points, 284 completions, 24 touchdowns, 12 picks. He also had 12 fumbles. And that's 12 fumbles being a quarterback. I think he had 6 as a rushing option as well. So he had a really turnover play season. Todd still got the number 1 and number 2 on the board.
Okay. It wasn't Dwayne Haskins. That's for sure.
We talked about one of the guys earlier on this podcast today. Oh, this is so disappointing, guys.
It is.
At least I stumped you. I guess that's something.
Uh,
If you don't know, you can pass.
You
I'll
can
pass.
I'll take it.
All right, Mikey, go for it.
I'll say Kyler Murray.
Ding, ding.
Okay.
The top rookie scoring quarterback. In fact, he was 12th amongst all quarterbacks in our league. 658 points, 349 completions, 20 touchdowns. He also had 544 rush yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. He also had, what's that number? 19 total turnovers, as most rookies do. I'll just throw this out. Let's just go on to the next one. Gardner Minshew was number 2.
Yeah.
So there you go. So Kyler Murray, if you're drafting a rookie quarterback, Kyler Murray had a great year. He was 12th, so he was a starting quarterback amongst our system. Gardner Minshew was 22nd amongst all quarterbacks, and Daniel Jones 24th. So you probably know what's coming next. Second round, we'll start with Mikey first. He leads this game 2-0. Who is the top scoring running backs? Or who were the top scoring running backs in our scoring format last year? Mikey, you go first. Top 3.
Oh, boy. It shows you how little I paid about these stupid rookie players.
And that's kind of the point, is to kind of show everybody how high they finished and what the potential maybe is for next year. Since
I'll say Miles Sanders.
That is correct. In fact, he's the number 1 answer, if you can believe that. 181 points. He was 16th amongst all running backs. 818 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, 50 receptions for 509 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he was number 1. Good job, Mikey. Todd, up to you.
All right.
Todd sucks at games, I think.
I know.
He looks so excited.
It's
There should be an
ironic.
obvious one up there. Just based on where he's drafted. I know where he was drafted in 2018. Or no, 19. It'd have been 19, sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I was gonna say Saquon, but that ain't Saquon. What is wrong with my brain? I shouldn't. Standards. Pass. God damn it.
All right, Mikey.
I'm drawing blanks.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to think it because I had a guy on my team, and I'm just trying to remember what his name was.
Not sure who that was. Couldn't help you with that.
Buffalo.
Oh, god dang it.
Singletary.
I'm sorry?
Singletary.
Devin Singletary was actually 4th. Sorry, you do not get that point.
Okay.
I'm going to give you guys, I'm gonna throw this hint at you, and you guys can just throw it out. Whoever I think hears it first, because this isn't going very well and it's slowing down the show. This number 2 guy was a starting running back from the start, drafted in the first round with a team that had 3 first-round picks.
That is
Jacobs.
There you go, Josh Jacobs. 174 points. He was 19th amongst all running backs. And number 3 was actually David Montgomery, who had 889 yards. He finished 25th. So if you're thinking about drafting rookie running backs, Miles Sanders, 16th overall, had a great season with 50 catches. Josh Jacobs, who was probably the top rookie running back drafted, was 19th. He had over 1,000 yards, but not much in the catching department. All right, so now we're going to go to wide receivers, and Mikey's killing it. It's 3-1. So now, obviously, the third one's going to be wide receivers, the top scoring rookie wide receivers in our scoring format. Todd, top 3. You get to go first this time.
Okay.
This one's even
Christian
harder.
Kirk.
I'm sorry?
Christian Kirk.
No, I'm sorry. I believe he was in his second year last year. Todd or Mikey, do you have an answer?
The only one I can think of right now is Deebo Samuel.
He is actually third. Congratulations, you get a point. Deebo Samuel finished 33rd amongst all wide receivers with 138 points, 57 receptions, 802 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 3 rushing touchdowns. And for those who follow any kind of football, Samuel actually out for a while with a broken leg? Foot, thank you. And he's out for probably 3 months. He could be back in time. All right, Mikey's up 4-1. If you hard for Todd to come back at this point, but we'll give him a shot. Top 2 answers still on the board.
Okay. My shooting class is so bad though.
These guys started off incredible at the beginning of the season, kind of tailed off later. I don't know if that had anything to do with the quarterback change that they went with, but he was a guy that a lot of people picked up across the league, across all fantasy leagues, and maybe disappointed in the second half. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's the hint I'm giving you.
Yeah. Okay. It's
Goodness, Todd, this is disappointing.
It is disappointing. I should
Frustrated.
pass.
He passed. Keep thinking. Mikey, top 2 answers still on the board.
All right. On the back of my incredible pickup, I'm just gonna take a stab at this. But I'm gonna say Darius Slayton.
Oh, I'm sorry. He did really well at the end of the season as opposed to the beginning of the season. I don't have him in my top 4, so no point to you. That's gonna be. Let's see. In terms of, anybody can guess. Go ahead. Anybody can guess.
I think I know one. What about Todd's boy, Mr. Muscles, DK Metcalf?
No, DK Metcalf.
He actually finished 4th. He was 34th. He was a couple points behind Deebo Samuel, so he was not in the top 4. The top 2, I know the top answers, you guys can be disappointed you didn't get it. In fact, he's a big breakout candidate this year. A.J. Brown from Tennessee, who had 52 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. He was 22nd amongst all wide receivers. And the guy I was talking about at a great beginning, but kind of slowed down the second half, was Terry McLaurin from the Redskins, 139 points, 31st amongst wide receivers. So all those, and we'll talk about all these rookie wide receivers here in a second, but as you can see, rookie wide receivers, hard to finish depending on where you draft them. It takes them a little while to figure things out. So let's talk about the rookies here. We'll start with the QBs, of course. We saw 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Number 1, Joe Burrow to Cincinnati. Number 5, Tua Tagovailoa to Miami. Justin Herbert to the Chargers. And the 26th overall pick in the first round, Jordan Love to Green Bay. As fantasy owners, should we be excited about any of these guys and their destinations for this season or maybe even next? Anybody get you excited? Todd's kind of the college aficionado, so tell me who you're excited about amongst these guys for fantasy owners.
Okay. I would say Joe Burrow just because he's probably the only one that's going to actually start from day one. Jordan Love's not going to start unless, even if they carry Aaron Rodgers off on a stretcher, he'll still try to throw the football down the field. So that's fine. And Tua just depends on where Miami is season wise, because Fitzpatrick I think is going to start the season, and Herbert, he's in a battle with Tyrod Taylor, and Anthony Lynn definitely likes Tyrod Taylor a little bit more because he's a little bit more mobile. So if anything out of the quarterbacks, Joe Burrow.
I know, Mike, you're not a big college football watcher like Todd, or I'm definitely not either. Kyler Murray was drafted in our league last year, if I'm not mistaken. Any of these guys be drafted, or any guys that maybe in the last round, all the decent backups are taken, someone's going to take a chance on Burrow or Tua or any of these guys?
I'm sure somebody will take a chance on Burrow, but to answer the question, am I excited about any of them this year? Hell no.
Good answer, Mikey. Good answer.
No. And then for all the reasons Todd just stated, Tua is probably not going to start the season. Neither is Herbert. Neither is Love. And with Burrow, you better pray A.J. Green stays healthy, or he's going to be facing the same thing that Andy Dalton did last year. Tyler Boyd and a bunch of garbage. So, no, I'm not excited about any of that.
Eric's favorite player.
In terms of Jordan Love and what I've read, I've done some research. I've seen some folks speculate that Jordan Love could be the Taysom Hill of Green Bay. For those who don't know who Taysom Hill is, he's that quarterback that comes off the bench for New Orleans and kind of a gimmick guy. You can throw the ball, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball. If Jordan Love is anything like that, is it worth having him on your roster?
Is it worth having Taysom Hill on your roster?
Sure.
I mean, are you going to be able to guess which game he pops out and has a good day?
What if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt? Then is it worth it?
Then you better trade Devontae Adams.
One thing I'll say, just going through these guys, you hope Tua doesn't play this year. That offensive line, I know he drafted a couple guys, but their offensive line was just terrible. 57 sacks allowed last year. They did have to throw the ball a lot because of their running was just so terrible. Fitzpatrick was their leading rusher with 243 yards. Tua has the history of injuries, so I'd be surprised unless they show any kind of progression, and maybe they throw him in at the end of the year, but it doesn't seem like a good year. The one thing I'll say about Joe Burrow is he made a lot of players on his team look really good. He's got the confidence. He seems like a humble dude, but he's probably the only one that possibly could get drafted. Rookie quarterbacks don't do a ton. So we'll move on here unless you guys have anything else to say. But in terms of wide receivers, obviously that was a big storyline heading into that draft. 13 were drafted in the first 2 rounds. And we just talked about where wide receivers usually go in terms of points in our system. It's not usually don't get a guy that's in the top 20. Mikey, we're going to talk about these guys individually, and anybody can just chime in after they're done. We'll start with Mikey. He's going to talk about Henry Ruggs III. He's going to be playing for the Raiders. What kind of wide receiver is he that you can tell, Mikey? I know Mikey's been watching a lot of YouTube videos like myself, so we've been kind of watching their highlights. Is he fantasy relevant this year?
Yeah, he's fantasy relevant. I mean, that dude is a freakish type athlete, and he's got burst for days. I mean, he legitimately watching him, like he reminds me of a young Isaac Bruce.
Oh, right on.
Like just where, if he gets a catch, that yards after catch, like he just has that second gear where he just zoom and he's gone. So, I mean, I think that the Raiders needed receivers. They needed speed. So I think that he'll have some big-time fantasy relevance for the Raiders.
Ruggs played for Alabama. He didn't put up huge receiving total, like actual catches. He had 46 as a sophomore, 40 as a senior, but that 17.5 yards per catch is a huge number, 24 touchdowns. The other guys that he'll battle for time and snaps is Nelson Aguilar, Zay Jones, and Tyrell Williams. So not big names. They can move that guy around. It'll be interesting to see what Ruggs does. He was the first wide receiver taken. And Todd, we'll let you talk about Denver Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy.
Well, I think Jerry Jeudy. I mean, the fact we got the best route runner and probably the best wide receiver in the whole draft. So put that one out there. So obviously coming into
talking, man. You're done talking.
Yes,
he's the best receiver in the draft. You don't have to say anything else.
That's pretty the best route runner. I mean, that's what's one of the things in football as a wide receiver. You got to run routes really well.
What about for fantasy owners? Like, is he a guy that people should look at as a guy they want to pick up? Should people draft him over Cortland Sutton?
No, not over Sutton. Not over Sutton. Not yet. But obviously, definitely, he's draftable. I would say, just throwing around out there where you want to get him, I would say the 5th round. I know that seems a little high, but he's going into an offense where he doesn't have to be the number one guy. He was the number one guy when he was at Alabama. He was the number one guy. That's where Tua threw the ball, 99% of the time too. So now going to the Broncos now, he's the number two. I mean, if he was on any other team, he'd be the number one, but he's the number two. So I think that'll take a little bit of pressure off. And I know, Eric, you always talk about the fact that it does take a little bit longer for rookie wide receivers to figure it out. They don't always, it takes them even, almost half of the season to figure it out. And, and that's understandable. But I think this situation now that he's going into that, hey, I don't have to be the number one guy.
Well, Judy had Ruggs. And Ruggs was drafted.
Yeah, but Judy still was the primary guy, and that opened up.
I know that, but I mean, they didn't have to double team him as much. I mean, when you have Ruggs, they also had a third guy. I don't remember his name, but they were saying he was going to be a guy that was drafted really high.
Yeah, well, what strikes me about Judy is just like the complete ease and how he is able to catch the ball while on the run. Like, you very rarely see it. It's almost like he has like Velcro attached to him, and no matter how fast he's running or what point in the route he is, the ball just like it sticks to him. Like, you don't ever worry about him dropping the ball while he's moving, which is just a really, really good thing. I think he's going to end up being a superstar eventually. I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question, and you're just going to say yes or no. I don't want any if this, if that. I just want you to tell me yes or no, okay?
Okay.
With all this talk of Cortland Sutton, obviously KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, does that mean that our quarterback is going to throw 35 touchdowns? Yes or no?
No.
Todd?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. A lot of expectations for the Broncos offense. I tasked myself because I didn't know much about him. With CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma, and I love this guy. He is an incredible, just by looking at his tape and what I've read. Obviously, he goes to an incredible offense, one of the higher throwing offenses in the league. Going to work with Dak Prescott. He'll be a number 3. They says he could play in, obviously, a number 3 behind Mari Cooper and Michael Gallup. Both those are outside guys, and he'll probably play mostly in the slot. Where Randall Cobb, Mikey's favorite wide receiver, Randall Cobb, who played there last year. Cobb was played in 720 snaps, most of those from the slot. He had 55 receptions, 828 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And so to be able to put in a guy that's younger, more talented than Randall Cobb, I think he's going to see a lot of good targets. He's going to get a lot of snaps. Lamb scored 7 of his 14 touchdowns from the slot position back in his college at Oklahoma. So there are also rumors, and so depending on how everything plays out, it says that Cooper could also play in the slot. He's shown some success there, but they said they're not too concerned if Lamb ends up going to the outside. Lamb can jump. He's really good with those contested balls. His yak totals were great. He's got decent size at 6'2", caught 173 balls at 3 years at Oklahoma. So I like this kid. He's going to be a third wide receiver. He will get drafted because he's unknown. He hasn't failed yet, but he's a guy that people should keep an eye on because that offense is still going to throw a lot despite having Ezekiel Elliott there. And Dak Prescott's got a lot to prove just playing under his franchise tag. So we'll keep moving here. Question I asked you guys, and you can talk about anybody you want. These 3 guys were later picks in the first round. You have Jalen Reagor that went to Philly, Justin Jefferson to Minnesota, and Brandon Ayuk to San Francisco. Todd, you can talk about any of those 3 guys.
I say Justin Jefferson, kind of the obvious one. He's going, he's going to an offense that likes to throw the ball a lot. He can play on the outside and play on the inside. I don't think he's. I think he'll get a lot of receptions. I think that'll be his big strength going into this fantasy football season. It won't be so much the touchdowns as much, but I think it'll just be like a lot of receptions. I think they'll just stick him in the slot, kind of like a Wes Welker type, and just keep gobbling down the field. I think Justin Jefferson goes into the best position. So that's who I would draft out of it.
Mikey, anybody of those 3 guys that you kind of like or know about?
Yeah, I kind of like Brandon Ayuk. I think he's going to fit well in San Francisco, especially in their screen game. I think he's going to be the type of guy that makes filling in for Deebo Samuel just kind of automatic there. I think he's going to fill in that role specifically right off the bat.
Cool. So I'll just talk about Rager. He's a 5'11" guy, 3 years at Texas Christian. A lot of production, 148 receptions, a little over 2,200 yards. I don't know how he's going to fit in. You got Alshon Jeffrey still there. Deshaun Jackson's still there. They run 2 tight ends. That's a lot. They drafted that Arcega Whiteside in the second round last year. So I don't know how he's going to fit in. They must like him to put him in the first round. Obviously, Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are kind of injury prone, so there might be options for him. So you can kind of keep an eye on him. It looks like he's a quick dude at 5'11", and a guy to keep an eye on. Let's go to the running backs here. Before we get into guys I told you guys to talk about, let's talk about this Clyde Edwards-Helaire guy. He was the last pick in the first round. He's the only running back to go in the first round. He went to the Chiefs. He's a 5'7" guy, 207 pounds, 2,100 yards in his 3 seasons there. Todd, what do you know about this kid?
He going into the kind of toward the teeter end of the college football season, he was they thought he was like the best player next to Joe Burrow on that LSU team that helped them win a national championship. So he definitely had that ability, catching the football out of the backfield and running between the tackles. I mean, obviously when you hear running back, okay, being able to catch the football out of the backfield, that's great. But if he can also run between the tackles and get you those tough yards that he can, then that's a home run there. So
people are saying that he's going. I mean, from what I've seen, he's the first running back taken, and some even see him as a late first round pick. Is that kind of your assessment? Is that where you should go?
It's a tricky one, just because he's going to the Chiefs where you already have so many weapons. So and you don't know if Damian Williams is still because obviously Damian Williams was great in the Super Bowl. So with Edwards, I think you have to take a flyer on that one. I mean,
But a flyer is a guy you take later in the draft. People are taking him as the top running back, one of the best offenses in the league. Is that crazy? Are people crazy for thinking that?
I think that's a little too high. I mean, the running back class this year wasn't great anyway. And Edwards he did so well through the college football playoff and the national championship game that rose his stock, just skyrocketed. So that kind of helped him out. So
what do you think, Miguel? I mean, I'm sure you've done some research. I'm sure you watched the same tape I did. This guy is only 5'7", but a lot of people like what he brings to the table. What do you think?
The one thing that I caught watching him is don't be the first guy he sees as soon as he gets the ball, because you're about to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I mean, his movement and his feet and being able to move side to side is just incredible. So I understand the excitement. To me, he reminds me a lot of Maurice Jones-Drew, but when he starts juking people, he reminds me of Barry Sanders sometimes. So,
sure.
Like I get why people are so excited. I'm hesitant to say like late first round pick though, because I believe that Damian Williams still has a role in the offense. I think that you're going to see Edwards-Helaire more in the running game, and you'll still have Damian Williams more involved in the passing game.
So between the tackles, basically, for Edwards.
Yeah, because he is, even though he's small, he's still, you watch him, he's so quick to make that first cut. It makes him good, even going between the tackles. But I think Damian Williams is so good at that screen game, and he's so fast. That's the difference between the two. Like, you watch Helaire, like his top speed, it's not that great. He gets caught a lot from behind. Where Damian Williams, if he breaks loose, you're not catching him. So they're going to use both guys.
Yeah.
So this group thinks that Helaire is going too early in a lot of the mock drafts. The last thing I'll say, about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is that he broke out in this 2019 season. In his sophomore season, he ran for 658 yards on 146 attempts for 4.5 average. And last year he just exploded. And I think a lot of that's because of Burrow. A lot of the guys we're going to talk about outside of Burrow, Helaire, Edwards, and you talked about Justin Jefferson. Like, what a season for LSU. All these guys are making their money off that one big season. So think about that. All right, Todd, we're running up again. We're a little over an hour right now. So give me some of your thoughts on DeAndre Swift, who was the second running back taken. These are second-round running backs, but the Lions decided to take him.
Well, obviously, a Lions running back, it's hard to kind of trust Lions running back because there haven't been a lot of good ones. But I mean, Swift definitely can. I think they're going to utilize Swift more as a pass catching running back than they are between the tackles. I think that's still Kerryon Johnson's job there. But obviously, utilizing and giving Matthew Stafford another weapon definitely helps. I mean, Swift was more, one of those shifty running backs at Georgia. But I don't know if he's one where, hey, you can, if he's a third down back, like handing the ball or throwing the ball, and he'll either ice the game for you. So, like I said, kind of going back to what we just talked about, this running back class for the rookies is just not great. It's just there's no like wow. There's no Saquon Barkley. I know that didn't happen every single year, but for Swift, it's just, obviously got drafted in the second round, so I've seen a lot of teams don't take running backs anyway in the first round anyway as much anymore like they used to. So for Swift, they can utilize him the right way, whether they put him out on the slot or put him out as a wide receiver and just get him the football. Then I think he's worth late in rounds to draft him. But I wouldn't put a big stock in.
He may not be Saquon Barkley, but DeAndre Swift is going to be your offensive rookie of the year. This guy's incredible. I loved watching this guy on tape. He's a great pass blocker. See you later, Kerry Johnson. He can't even stay on the field. He's missed 16 games in 2 years. Give me DeAndre Swift all day. I love this guy. 9.1 yards after a catch, almost 7 yards per carry, 25 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift's pretty good. Don't sleep on him. A guy that also accumulated a lot of stats in his time at college and even in high school is Jonathan Taylor. I had Mikey talk about this Wisconsin guy where they just grow offensive linemen out from their dirt.
I had a hard time with this one because I didn't really know what I was looking at. Like, is Jonathan Taylor really as good as his numbers say? Or is the offensive line at Wisconsin just that damn good? You watch that offensive line, the dude was 5 yards down the field before anybody could even sniff him.
I think Mikey's talking about Monty Ball syndrome. Is that what this is? Yeah,
it could be. but the more and more that I looked at him, and the comp I came up with entitled like this, it was Willis McGahee.
Hey.
Because he's like strictly like a make one cut and go guy.
Yeah, that's what Willis McGahee did in Miami.
Willis McGahee wasn't big, but he ran big.
Well, McGahee was faster than Taylor was.
I don't know. I'm not talking about McGahee pre-catastrophic injury.
Okay. You're talking post-catastrophic injury.
How much are you worried about Marlon Mack in this scenario? Is Mack still going to be the starter and Taylor be a change of pace guy? Where do you kind of see that offense going in terms of their running back?
Mikey. That's what I struggle with. I'm very worried about that. They have Marlon Mack, they have him, and then they have Naheem Hines. And somehow I get the feeling they're going to use all three guys, which scares me. If I'm planning on drafting Jonathan Taylor.
Sure. I understand that. He did break Adrian Peterson's rookie rushing record in college for yards that full season. He had 1,977. He does have 18 fumbles and lost 15 of them in his college career. He also ran, I don't have the number, I should have typed it down, but he had like 500 carries in college too. He's got a lot of mileage on him, and that seems to be the kind of the case against Jonathan Taylor. One guy I'll talk about, I'm going to talk about two guys real quick here. Cam Akers from Florida State has some good ability. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He had close to 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns as a senior, 5 yards per carry, 30 receptions. Even in a bad offensive line, he put up some pretty good numbers, good explosiveness, cutback ability. He's patient. He's used at the goal line, and they need a running back. So I'm not super high on Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown, who didn't put up big numbers last year behind Todd Gurley, even though they didn't use Todd Gurley that much. So he has a good chance of being the number one running back over there in Los Angeles or wherever they are. Yeah, Los Angeles. Mikey, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, let me ask you something about Cam Akers.
Sure.
Because I kind of noticed this watching him.
You told me that you noticed something, and I didn't really notice something. He didn't have like a weird limp, or didn't seem like he was slow, and I don't know. What did you see that I didn't?
Okay, so this may mean something and it may not.
Okay.
So every single play that I watched Cam Akers, they were in the shotgun.
Oh, okay.
Every single one. Now, I went and looked this up because I kind of thought it was funny. Did you know that the Rams ran out of the shotgun the least out of any team in the NFL last year?
Yeah, I could see that because they also run 2 tight ends, so it's not like they have a lot of running backs that need to get to certain places. So
I'm not saying that means something. I just found it a little odd.
it's interesting because you take the ball a certain way, you're kind of used to it, especially after 3 years. So that's a good point. It's a good point. So I kind of like Cam Akers just in terms of situation. He should go higher than some of these guys. I'd probably take him over Jonathan Taylor just because of situation. I'll quickly mention A.J. Dillon from the Packers. He was 3 years at Boston College. Very productive, over 4,000 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, 38 touchdowns. Didn't catch a lot of balls, but he did average 10-plus touchdowns all 3 years. Had a great junior year. He's light on his feet. He's hard to bring down. He kind of reminded me of Steven Jackson when he was in Atlanta. He runs tall. He's a tall guy. He's 6 foot, 247 pounds, but he's got a little bit of light feet. He spins the knock guys off. Some say he's a better Derrick Henry. I don't know if I'll go that far. But in terms of just, being there with Aaron Jones, I think maybe a thunder and lightning type of attack. He had a 4.53 40-yard dash. That's not great. But when you're 247 pounds, he seems like he's a pretty good athlete. And obviously, we've heard a lot of LaFleur likes to run the ball first. Last year, they threw the ball just 59% of the time, which is 16th overall. And Green Bay likes to run 2 wide receiver sets. So that was kind of my quick assumption or assertion of A.J. Dillon. So those are all your rookie talks. We had some old players in new places. Any last words that you guys want to talk about? It could be about anything.
Well, I saw all the Hall of Fame stuff got canceled today,
Yeah.
so it makes me wonder, are the preseason games going to start being next? And then what happens after that? Is it going to be a delay in the start of the season?
Yeah, it's just not that we think every day changes where it's like, all right, it's getting better and this is it's moving forward, and then it's just fingers crossed and everything like that, and pray to the football gods that we have football because
I think the good thing for football, obviously they're in a tough situation. We see baseball and hockey and basketball trying to get everything done before Thanksgiving, before it gets cold and people are more susceptible to the virus. They could go further and further into spring. So if they even push everything further, maybe even until January, you could still have a season. Maybe it's truncated, but they can play no matter what the weather is. So I think they have that to their advantage if it gets better after January. But yeah, we're in a tough situation, and I'm not one to speculate on all of it, but it was fun to talk about it. It's fun to kind of look back and look at the upcoming rookies and looking at tape. That was really fun to do today and kind of see everything. Mikey did win our game. I kind of glanced over that when we talked. Mikey won 4-1 in the game. So Todd, you better get your MHA trivia in line here, kid.
Well, I know. Well, I think too is we talked about how did we all. Obviously, y'all know my opinion, but how the draft was this year. Because obviously it wasn't. People can go out and see it or whatever, and it was all, from home kind of thing. Y'all know I love the draft. I don't have to go on about that. But what did you all think about it? Like how it was this year, like seeing coaches in their houses and everything like that, and obviously first talk about Scarface galore. That was,
I think I liked it a lot better. It broke up the monotony of guy gets called, guy walks on stage, guy shakes the commissioner's hand, gets the jersey, and interview him. Like, I don't know. I've never really. I mean, it's exciting to see you guys in the first round because those guys have the most fantasy relevance. At least most of them. Obviously, you have your offensive linemen and defensive guys, but it was different to see for someone who's in TV like myself how live TV could work in this situation. Sending all the cameras to all the players. You didn't really have any lags or situations where cameras went out or, so, I mean, to see how far we've come in technology really excited me about watching the draft.
Yeah, with me, I always thought, hey, man, these college kids have super nice houses.
They're getting paid already, unless their dad was in the league before he was. These kids have pretty nice houses. I think a lot of those kids were also like at a clubhouse of their apartment or something, because some of that stuff just looked like not what you would see normal, even in a normal nice house. It just looked off wall.
You get funny moments too, like that dude that got drafted by the Titans, where the mom was pulling the girlfriend off of her kid. Made me laugh.
We saw a guy on the toilet in one of those shots. We saw that afterwards. So definitely interesting. But so we'll see. We'll do more. We'll get into some position previews coming up here. We'll have some ranks. Maybe we'll do some ranks and do some ranking disputes. It's fun to talk about and kind of go into. Baseball starting up for our league. We're open to draft in about a month here, so I know a lot of us are kind of getting in more. I had a draft a couple weeks ago, so I'm already kind of in draft mode, and so we'll see. But it was cool to see you guys, and hopefully we'll have another show pretty soon. Well, for Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.